Okay, no.
I didn't get no. Let's do it again. Yeah. So I never turn it on right when we start because that would be rude. But thank you, Pat, for joining us today. Masters Radio is a community of artists and their fans, where the artists made their first hit at least 20 years ago. And what we've recognized is that little of the current outlets for music that, well, frankly, we had growing up, terrestrial radio, um,
Right.
Billboard, MTV is gone, we learned this week. Um, they're not really doing a whole lot for these artists of this generation. So we've made it our mission to uh, play their new music, because most of them are making new music, provide a community for their fans and the artists to get together and arrange conversations, art, sell music, sell videos. We provide artists benefits, healthcare, insurance, other things like that, like they might get if they were part of a union or a large corporation. So whenever we get the opportunity to meet someone who, like you, has been obviously a Masters of Radio, Three Dog Night, drummer for them for 30 years, as well as a host of other people, it's always a treat. So thank you for agreeing to sit with us today. And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a few questions about this long and storied career you've had.
Sure, man. I'm getting here where it's quieter.
Okay, excellent.
I have guys working on my house here, so
Oh, yep, yep. Know the feeling. Now, I understand that I've looked at a little bit of research on you before we started this thing. You have a recording studio there at your house, correct?
I do. I do. I have. I've had many actually.
Uh,
Um, I started. I got my first recording job in 1979. 79.
yeah,
So I've been through the analog, and now we're digital, and I
yep,
love digital.
yes, yes, yep.
I can fix anything.
It's absolutely. I remember schlepping a B3 up the stairs in my roughly around the same time frame band, and I'll never do that again. Yes, I use VSTs and electronic synthesis from here on out. Um, okay, so 30 years with the same band to
Right.
me kind of seems like a long marriage, right? So you must know everything about each other, and you must, of course, know everything that there is to the things that each other don't know, and you must have some shared experiences. So, from that perspective, what about the music business when you started? Do you wish was still true?
Do I wish was still true? Um, Drummers get all the chicks. Doesn't happen anymore.
Did it back then?
No,
I
not
didn't
really.
think so. Yeah, yeah. So I played for a little while. We're all hot and sweaty back there. Nobody sees us. Um,
Yeah. Um, let's see. Um, so yeah, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing isn't really true. It's but I didn't get into it for that kind of thing. I mean, I always loved to play, so I really wasn't in my early life as a musician. I I uh I was like a jazz guy,
mhm.
you know. I think my first the first records I remember hearing were um Zappa, Miles, um, Buddy Rich. That's pretty much it. And then I realized that there was other music out there, but you know how jazz guys are, and when you're brought up in that environment, you look down your nose at such simplistic simpletons, you know. And it's only years later that you realize how great it is to be able to not play a bunch of junk that's not needed and leave space for other musicians and all kinds of things.
Very
So
good. Yeah.
I don't know. That was kind of a long. I don't even know if I answered the question.
It was an even better one. Yeah, I mean, after a while, and I saw you went to Berkeley, um, and they, obviously
And
jazz tradition.
that was an audio guy.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, but yeah, after a while, you realize, you know what, Charlie Watts really is a good drummer. Ringo Starr,
Yeah, exactly.
it just it sinks in there. So, all right. So let me ask you a different question. What about the industry from back then? Do you still love about it? Right. Clearly, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll part's out. But what else?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I remember my excitement was just to have somebody call me for a gig, you know. I mean, that was a big deal, you know. Not so much anymore because I'm old and jaded and my hands hurt and I got arthritis in my back and you know, you know all this stuff. And I, I don't want to carry a kit upstairs anymore or any of that. So I don't really go out and play gigs with local musicians as I should. I'm just it's too much work. But I'm sorry. I will go back to what's still there. I do. I mean, the camaraderie between musicians has always been there, and it will always be there. Um, and I have, all my friends are musicians. I, I mean, I have a few friends that aren't, but I spend my life in this business. Um, you're going to have a bunch of musician friends, and they're some of the nicest, most giving people that I know.
I've seen that. Yeah, we had Lawrence Gowan of Styx on, very down to earth. We've been playing with them like 25 years, I think it is now. And so, yeah, and he said he keeps me young. You know, loving working with the guys. They all love each other. It's clearly the same thing with you guys. Having people that care about art, the music,
Yes.
that's that unifying passion, and the fact that you're all kind of in it together. You talked at the beginning of the call about slogging through the touring. The planes, the trains, the automobiles. Um, to do that and to love it is to I'm guessing based upon what I've heard, that's the point.
Yeah. I mean, it's not at all what you think it is when you're 17, 18 years old and you're wanting to do this for your whole life. It's not what you think it is. There's a lot of, as any artist will tell you, there's an awful lot of repetition because I mean, I get it. Uh, if I paid $100 to come see some band play, I'd want to hear their hits, you know? And so you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck playing those hits every night. And even though you have maybe some songs that you've written or some songs that you play in other situations that you just love to play, you you can't pull them out and play them there. Um, what do we call that? We call it the bathroom break. As soon as somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to play something off of my new record," half the audience gets up and goes to the bathroom. You know, and I mean, I don't blame them. They're just trying to. They're waiting for that bullfrog song and "Mama Told Me Not to Come" and and all that kind of stuff. They're waiting for those songs and I don't blame them. I
And
I don't I don't know how Bob Dylan gets away with not doing any of his tunes on a show.
he's Bob Dylan. That's
I
how.
yeah, I that's the only thing you can say is that he's Bob Dylan. Yeah.
sits in a chair and plays guitar, and people will pay whatever he wants, or whatever the promoters want. To be fair to Bob, yeah. Well, I'd like to say I have a lot of sympathy for the fact that you've got to play nothing but hits, but with Three Dog Night's hit collection, there's a lot there compared to a lot of bands who have two, three, or four.
Yeah.
The aforementioned Bob Seger, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Comes to
and
mind.
and that becomes difficult. I mean, we've played with some bands that only had a couple of tunes, and I mean, I feel sorry for the guys. It's sometimes because they have to play that one tune or two tunes for 20 minutes, and okay, now let's hear the ladies sing it. Now let's hear the men sing it. You know.
Like the Blues Brothers playing Rawhide. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's brilliant. So we've been speaking about what it was like thinking about the music business when you were a younger person. So if it's not what they think when you're 17, 19, and you started even younger than that, what would you say to a younger musician who maybe wants to follow your path, wants to be doing this when he's 60, 70 years old?
Well, I just make sure you love it. You know, um, if you go into it loving what you do, you'll you'll won't have a boring day or a boring time. Um, so many guys quit because they don't really love it that much. They get burnt out, and I can get the burnout factor too. Um, but I can come home burn out after a tour, and 2 weeks later I'm ready to go again. So you know it all depends on sometimes on when you talk to me. Oh, he just got home. I wouldn't ask him right now.
I'm sure. How have the fans changed in the 30 years?
Well, they've gotten older. Well,
Okay, yeah. Okay.
that's my first thing that pops into my head. I have a lot of friends that are in our fan base. We have some great folks. Um, I I can't fathom um, what it is to jump into a car and drive 800 miles to come to a show. Um, and I really appreciate that they actually do that. Um, and they they'll bring their kids. So here comes 17, 18 year olds to the show, and then they go, hey, you guys are actually good. you know and then, well, I've been telling you that, mom says, and suddenly then they're at the show and their friends are with them. So it but I always get off subject. I have a tendency to do that. um yeah, I would tell them they just really need to love music and love what they do.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's certainly easy to understand that will conquer an awful lot of the
Yeah.
grief, the challenges that come along the way. Speaking of challenges, during the pandemic, it's tough on musicians, particularly those that had to make their living touring. What lessons did you learn, if any, about the creative process? Maybe when you were doing recording and things like that. What did you learn during the pandemic that
Oh,
maybe is
well,
relevant now?
I learned that you definitely need to save your money for those hard times. Um, that's that's the first thing I learned. Um, yeah, I at first I was freaked out a little bit that we weren't going to be going out, and then I kind of got used to it. I I guess if I ever retire, that's kind of what it's going to be like. It's going to be like the pandemic years. Um, and the creative process. I mean, I did a lot of sessions back while I was off. I made a lot of a lot of half of songs I wrote.
Mhm.
Never a full one, I don't think. Um, but a lot of half of songs. And maybe next time I'm off, I'll do the other half and see what happens.
There you go.
Uh,
There you go. Speaking of songs and doing the other half, I have seen stuff about a possible new album, The Road Ahead. Is there anything you can say publicly about that?
well, it's been finished eh, probably for um oh, sorry, hang on there. People keep sending me stuff. Um it's been finished for, I want to say, mastered maybe for 6 months. You know, what I know about it is that it's a record company thing. I don't know much more than that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to know more because then I'll be the guy going, "Hey, when's that thing coming out?" Um, but it sounds great. You know, I'm not even. I'll tell you, we have cut so many songs. I'm not even sure what's on it. Um, I have copies of all those tunes, but I'm not even sure if all of them made the record. Um, I'm afraid to ask. Yeah, they'll go, yeah, everything was really good except for that drum part you played, and we couldn't put it on the record because it kind of was weak, you know. No, you know, it'll be out. That's all. That's the only thing I
Okay.
can say.
I mean, that's, it's what's funny about that to me, it probably isn't funny, but what's surprising to me is how much a record company is still involved in that. I guess what you just told me sounds like something an artist would have told me 30 years ago, long before the music business has changed as much as it has, with tracks being put out everywhere, with collaborative environments and the like. It just seems to me that artists really don't need what a label used to do for us, in getting the music out there, getting it put together, getting it packaged, getting it sold. All
Right.
come together with that. But it sounds like in your case, you're still, either relying upon or hamstrung by a record label.
Yeah. Record companies want so much of your business now. I don't see the validity of them really. And you're talking to a guy who's just started a production company, so
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, it's the budgets that they put out for even mainstream artists are nothing, you know, compared to what they used to be.
Yeah, yeah, because they were the only outlet. Tell me about the production you're going to be doing.
Oh, Tim, bass player, you know,
Yeah.
Tim, Danny Hutton's son is the bass player in the band. Um, Tim's a fine player. He was doing Sugar Ray until his services were needed, and then he had to leave Sugar Ray and come play with us.
Mm-hmm.
And
When
and
Daddy calls, yeah, right, yeah, I get
exactly, exactly.
it.
And so Tim and I are picking artists um, that we love their music. So, and producing, um, we're producing records and singles and, you know, whatever. We're producing songs for them, and we're from beginning to end. And then we're not charging them anything up front. We're getting it all in the back end through um, you know, various. I don't have time. That's a whole show in itself. Um, Various avenues, and we've had a great response. We we just cut a tune for a group called Brother Earl. And there's these guys, I can't believe how talented they are. The drummer, do you know who Burley Drummond is?
No.
Burley is the
Oh,
drummer in
Willie
Ambrosia.
Drummond. Yeah, Ambrosia.
Yeah. Well, his
Yeah,
son,
yeah, yeah.
Burley Jr.,
Mhm.
is the drummer in this band.
Oh, okay.
And he is a fine drummer.
Yeah. In fact, we're playing the band, the the female songwriter and singer in that with Burley. They've been doing it for a long time. I can't Day
Oh,
something.
Tin Drum.
Tin Drum. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they're on our rotation. Yep. So
Oh, good. Well,
yep.
Burley is one of the nicest cats I have. I've known cats. Ooh, sound like an old jazz musician.
You know what? You are an old jazz musician. Yeah, so that's fair.
Wait, I don't have the goatee, man. Um, but Burley is one of the nicest guys, and I have never actually met his son. I've mixed a record with him on it,
Yeah,
but I've never met him. He's a good player.
that's good. Yeah, yeah. I think the stuff that I've heard in Tin Drum is fantastic. Yeah, and you're just not hearing that stuff. I don't think this new record, relatively new record of theirs, I think it's last year, is out anywhere except us. So yeah, it's in a regular rotation for us. But yeah, that's great to hear. I was going to ask you if you're hearing younger musicians that are making you go, wow, and it sounds like you are, and you're helping them.
Oh, they, you know what? I will, when we're done here, I'll send you a little taste of these guys. They're just so authentic, and it's a great band.
That's great
Great
to hear.
writing.
Thank you. Very good. Very good. I saw when I was looking through your stuff, and I sort of saved this toward the end in case you don't want to talk about it, but you had some health challenges, and you overcame them. It seems like to a large degree with the help
Yeah.
of kind of cool. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Uh, I I don't know if would say unfortunately, but um, yeah, I have Parkinson's. Um, but I've been able to. Well, I have. First of all, I have a deep brain stimulator that stops tremors and all um, the outward signs of Parkinson's. I have a slight motor issue with my right arm. Not anything anyone would notice, except me, of course. Um, but if you practice enough, which is basically what I do all day, you can overcome it.
Yeah.
It I think and it's easy to say right this second, but I think the answer to overcoming those shortcomings is just to keep your nose down and keep practicing. Um, and I'm still able to play. Um, so I'm I can't I'm a blessed cat, as they would say. Um, and I I I have my DBS in my right side, and
Mhm.
I'm getting one installed, I guess,
Yeah.
again for my left side, and that is June the 14th, I think.
Mhm.
And did you see the video?
I saw the video from the Mayo Clinic. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just
where
amazing.
you're awake and they drill a
You're
hole in
working
your head.
the practice pad.
Yeah,
You'd
but
say,
they drill a hole in
that's
your head while
brilliant.
you're awake.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, I know it's an awake surgery because it has to be. right?
Oh,
Didn't want to make sure it worked. Yeah.
that's what stopped me from doing it in the begin with. I, the doctor had said a couple of years before that, man, I can get it so nobody will ever know that you even have Parkinson's. And I said, okay, uh, so what do I have to do? And he goes, well, see, we put this drill, and he holds a drill bit up. And he goes, we drill a hole in your head, and then we put this probe down in your brain. And I'm like, stop right there, man. I am not having somebody drill a hole in my head. But then 2 years later, I was doing it. So, and it was not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. I thought, oh man, I'm getting here grinding and all. And, it didn't. I mean, the worst part, they don't drill all the way through your brain, your skull. They only drill down till just before it pushes through, obviously, to your brain. And then the worst part about it is they use like tile nippers and nip the rest of your skull out. And but the doctor has done like 3,000 of these.
Yeah.
He's a wizard.
It's amazing what they can do. I didn't realize that you could have two of them, but,
Yeah, one for
yeah,
each
that's,
side.
yeah.
And I have a friend who she works for Boston Scientific, so I've gone to a bunch of with her and some other folks, and we've gone to some of these Parkinson's associations, and you know, I I do the big demo is I turn my DBS off, which makes me tremor, and then I turn
Oh,
it back on. That stops, which is kind of a cool thing.
that is amazing. So it's right then. It's in like the real time kind of thing. It doesn't take time for it to fix it.
No, it's and what's interesting about it is they discovered the in the 90s when this particular thing was discovered that if you put light in certain parts of the brain,
Mhm.
it reverts itself to being normal.
Wow.
And I think that's partly because there's like a boy, I'm not remembering the name today, but there's like a not a pathogen, but there's that causes Parkinson's, and it covers your brain up, and they shine when they shine a light through it, it can see. It's like it's almost can see again, and it works. It's amazing.
That sounds fascinating. I'm glad you shared that with us. We, as you can guess from our name and what I've told you about who we are, that a lot of our musicians are are older folks, and they are very likely to get Parkinson's. It more so than say a 20 something, but that's happening too. My local state representative, who is I think early 50s, she's just been diagnosed with it. They're able to catch it much sooner now, but to
Yeah,
know that there is a way to really fix it that is as intrusive clearly as it is so effective. I mean, and what a fantastic testimonial it is, because it's one thing to be able to walk and to cook for yourself and to drive and things, but to be a top shelf drummer doing
yeah,
that on the road touring. And when I saw you doing the practice pad, and I've had friends who've done brain surgery, and thankfully I haven't had any myself, but I have friends who've had it, and they do make you do something, speak or read or write or talk, so they know they're doing it right. And I thought it was so cool when you were working the drums practice pad. I thought if anything's going to show off that this worked, it's going to be that, and they
yeah,
do that. So thank you for sharing that. It's that's an
yeah.
amazing.
It has been an amazing thing for me to get that DBS. I was so lucky. There's so many people that have Parkinson's that do not know what a DBS can do. And I encourage anyone who has Parkinson's, who especially a tremor based Parkinson's, to just Google it and
Mhm.
read what a DBS can do for you. It will change your life. It really will.
That is
Um,
such an important thing to hear. Yeah.
and if anybody has any questions about it, needs help about it, well, I don't know, email me, and they can email me at let's try RDS R Richard David Sam recording at gmail.com, and I'll do whatever I can to help you.
I certainly appreciate that. That's a huge offer on your part. Um, Running out of time. Didn't want to keep no more than a half an hour, but this is an important message you've just said. But is there anything else that you want your fans of Three Dog Night to know that we haven't talked about today?
Um, no, we're playing almost 100 shows this year, so we will definitely see all our friends come out. We'll hang. We'll have a great time. We'll sing some songs. You guys can laugh at us.
Everybody knows. I don't think anybody's going to be laughing. They're going to be going.
No, they can laugh with us. So
That's right. They're
there's
going
a
to
there's a
look.
little bit of private jokes go on up on the in that bands.
Like I said, it's like being married to five guys for 30 years. Yeah, right. So, yeah, I get it. Well,
Exactly.
thank you so much. I really appreciate, Pat, you sharing some time with us, and your candor and your willingness to help is just heartwarming. Thank you for that. I certainly appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you guys out on the road. And when this record comes out, be promoting that too. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us here at Masters Radio.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'll see you guys. Maybe I'll see you at a show.
I certainly, if you're coming close to the DC area, I think you can count on it.
We are coming, and I'll hook you up.
Very
We're,
good.
we're we are at the Birchmere, whether we need to be or not.
Oh,
We play
wonderful.
that. We play there almost every year.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I call the new Birchmere, because when I played there, it was the old Birchmere. It moved only a few blocks, but it was a lot smaller. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and when you go there, red beans and rice, man. I'm telling you, they make the best East Coast red beans and rice that I've had.
wow, that's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you for that. All right.
All right, man.
Thanks so much. It's been a treat talking to Pat Bautz of Three Dog Night, and just such a great player, and just a force of nature on the drums. Has overcome some serious challenges, and keeps on going. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Bye bye.
See ya.